5 minutes.
Okay, so just a few questions around AMR testing and monitoring, and in particular the relationship between FSANZ and AQUIS. Is it right that FSANZ advises AQUIS on the testing regime and then categorises risks on foods according to whether they're low or medium risk? Is that generally the process?
Yes, look, in our legislation there's a particular function that we have, which is to provide assessment policy advice to, well, it's now called the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry Biosecurity Area, so formerly AQUIS. And what that means in plain English is that we provide basic risk assessment advice to that agency on foods that are imported.
Okay. So if a product came in and it carried the residue, for example, of a banned antibiotic, something where there's no maximum allowable level, who makes the decision about what to do with the shipment?
Well, that would be the enforcement agency, in this case DAF Biosecurity.
Okay, and do you provide them with advice, or is there just a general
Well, not necessarily.
protocol?
I mean, basically, there's a couple of steps here. Firstly, all food has to comply with the Australian-New Zealand Food Standards Code, and in the case of antibiotic residues, there would be maximum residue limits in that code for particular chemical commodity combinations. So that would be the first reference point. Another reference point for them would be to look at the risk list, yes. Which is a sort of a 100% testing list that DAF Biosecurity has, and if particular products and chemicals are on that, then they are subject to that particular arrangement.
But ultimately it will be their call in terms of what
Absolutely.
they do with
we
that
don't have any powers
yes.
in this
yes.
area. We
yes.
basically
yes.
provide advice.
Yes. Is there any communication between the two agencies in terms of communicating metadata on resistant bugs, for example, trends that might be emerging on particular things like imported seafood and so on? I mean, how do we establish that there's actually a growing problem, for example, with a particular resistant bacteria that seems to be being imported in larger numbers? How would that be picked up?
Yeah. I mean, we do have I guess an emerging issues framework that we work with.
Right.
But it's not necessarily targeted at imported food, it's targeted at food in general.
Okay.
And so if there are trends in particular areas, then we'll have a look at that. And if there are any implications for imported food, if imported food is seemingly or potentially a potential problem, then clearly we would be in consultation with DAF about that.
Okay, but that's, I suppose, once the trend has sort of been picked up. I'm just trying to work out how do we identify an emerging trend. So does AQUIS report to you every batch of contaminated food, for example, if we're talking about...
They don't report to us. They basically publish that material,
right.
as I understand it, on their website. It's publicly available. I don't know how frequently. I think it might be quarterly or something like that, monthly perhaps. But there's no requirement for them to provide us with information.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we have regular meetings with them on a monthly basis, and that's an opportunity to discuss any emerging issues that might need their attention.
Okay, so has the issue of antimicrobial resistance been identified as an emerging issue by FSANZ?
Not to my knowledge. The most recent work that we've been involved with in antimicrobial resistance was when we were asked by DAF, and on that occasion it was Biosecurity Australia, to have a look at potential risks with imported apples from New Zealand, because they use streptomycin over there at different times. So we basically did a risk assessment on that. Our assessment determined that the risks were negligible, and we provided that advice to DAF, and in fact I think that report that we did is again publicly available on our website.
Okay. I might leave it there, thank you.